would like to welcome you back to the third episode of A View from the Inside, Conversations with the Galena Park ISD Student Advisory Board. In this episode, the students will have a conversation about bullying and our district's initiative, No Place for Hate. Now I would like to reintroduce you all to the host and co-host of the podcast, Jaylee Jackson and Khalees Skinner, who will lead today's discussion.
Welcome back to episode 3 of A View from the Inside with Galena Park ISD Student Advisory Board. I'm your host, Khalees Skinner, and this is my co-host.
I'm Jaylee Jackson, and I go to ECHS.
Oh, and I go to the senior high. Yes. Today we will be discussing cyberbullying and No Place for Hate, a anti-discrimination organization. No Place of Hate is an organization for the equality of all people, no matter what they come from in their background, such as their religion, their gender identity, their preferences for people, and their looks, skin color, and various other things. We bring together people to show the love that we have for each other in the world, and we also actively participate in organizations and projects to help keep discrimination out of the conversation.
Yes.
Oh, and today our guest is Vanessa Squirrel, Director for School Culture. Now let's take a look at some of the videos that have been submitted by other Student Advisory Board students who have interviewed some Galena Park ISD employees and students. Our first video will be from Mr. Felder, a teacher from the Early College High School.
So what was the time that you witnessed bullying via in social media or via in person?
So I witnessed bullying as a teacher in many of campuses that I've been a part of, but this one instance kind of stuck with me because this person was quiet, didn't mess with anybody, but everybody in the classroom always joked on them because of the clothes that they wore, the shoes that they wore. So I had to step in because that was not part of our culture as a school. So I had to step in and let them know that that's not acceptable and that I would be calling their parents to let them know what's going on and that they should apologize to the student for even doing that. And then once we got that understanding that everybody's not in the same place, then we were able to mend that broken relationship and mend that culture in that particular classroom. And I also ended up blessing the child with a few different things as well so that the child can have a better self-esteem about themselves.
All right, so what is one way as us young adults that we can prevent the hate or stop the bullying?
Number one, if we see something, we have to say something. Can't sit idle and hope that somebody else will stand up and say something. We have to be able to stand out, stand away from the crowd and not intervene or not participate in it, but we need to put a halt to it and let them know that it's not cool.
Well, I just like Mr. Felder he's such an amazing teacher, and just looking at that video, it showed me like, this is who he is. He's so great. The boy was bullied and, you know, he spoke up. He gave him, you know, he blessed him with, you know, some things that would make him feel better. And he also said, if you see something, say something. And I think that's so important because just like we're all, like we've been saying, if cyberbullying is going on, the only way to stop it and the only way to help it is if you say something. So I think what Mr. Felder is doing and what all the teachers are doing is just a great thing. I think teachers should continue to be positive, keep your classroom in a good environment, and you know, just keep everything safe and just positive. So yeah.
To that I would add, I saw on TikTok recently that a teacher noticed that she taught low-income students and that a lot of her students were missing out on key things like breakfast, hygiene products, and several other things to just help them get through the day. So she decided she would open up the back of her classroom for an opportunity and allow the back of her classroom to be filled with the things that students needed and allow them to take them as much as they needed them. And even though she realized, of course, some students are going to take advantage of that because they don't need the stuff, but they want it, and it's kind of cool, you know, snacks are really good. That she would allow them to do that and then teach them the lessons afterwards and say, look, you took advantage of what we had, but there are students who don't have.
Yes, that reminds me of like, I always see like on Pinterest, I love Pinterest. I always see on Pinterest where it's like, there's like little buckets and it's like different words on it. So it'll say love and it'll say take what you need. And so people can take little notes or take little words of encouragement that will help them. Like it'll say, have a good day today. You're smart, you're enough. And so I think, you know, that's another thing that teachers can do, as well as, you know, the snacks and the hygiene. They can also do little letters, because words of affirmation, that stuff is very helpful.
I agree that when it comes to bullying in school and in person, even though it's not the teacher's fault and the teacher should not be held accountable for her students' actions, some of it can be preventable if they keep their classroom a positive space. I've had teachers who would purposefully call out students' grades who were failing to the entire class just to show that, oh, you're failing. And then that says to your students, oh, this is okay. It's okay because my teacher said it was fine. And if you do that, if you stop the discrimination right there, if you stop and say, this is not positive, I'm not gonna do this, your students aren't gonna do it either. And if you don't allow it in your classroom, then that's one more space where it can't happen and where a student has a safe place to be.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's watch the next video.
Make sure to vote Galena Park to promote safe use of social media.
Idiots. Bozos. I hate them all.
Hey, writing mean comments on the internet is not right. And plus, it's so last year. Let us tell you why you should always think before you post.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Whatever.
This is why you should never post anything impolite on the internet. First of all, look at me. Does it look like I got here from bullying people? I think not.
What is online bullying?
She's so annoying and she thinks she's better than everybody else.
You work too hard, it'll never pay off. You're too ugly to have 900 followers on Instagram. And then the third one is you have chipmunk cheeks.
Online bullying is when you harass somebody online.
And reading this, I felt offended and a little bit hurt because I don't know what I said or did to this person that would make them say something like this about me.
Twitter and any social media app can really result.
Online bullying can really affect some people in some really bad ways. It can even end lives too. You shouldn't do it. Don't do something that you don't want to be done to you.
Did you know that if you cyberbully, you could go to jail for like 35 years? I know, super crazy. Merrifford, could you back me up?
If you see someone attacking someone online, that means they have a small brain. Don't do that because you're smart and they're not.
So I think this video was really interesting because we got to see the direct result of some of these comments where they read out some of the bullying they had, you know, experienced. And I think the greatest thing about this is that it kind of, through all the reenactments and how they all connect together, you kind of get to the idea that stopping bullying is a community effort, really. Because if we say it's okay, then to them it's okay. But if we all say, no, we don't particularly understand why you're doing that, it's pretty interesting.
And watching the video, it just made me feel for them. You know, it made me feel like, dang, is this what people go through? You know, and it's like, it's really, really, really sad, you know, for people to go, you know, it could be your friend, it could be a fake account. I've seen so many fake accounts try to follow me, and like, it's just like, who are you? Like, are you trying to mess with me, you know? So I just think it's crazy how people can just go behind a screen and act like
I feel
someone
like the
else.
screen creates like a disconnect because it doesn't feel personal when you're typing out something about somebody. But when you see them in person, you wouldn't say the same thing, and that's kind of like a thing. Would you say that to someone in person? No, because you know something's gonna happen and it's not gonna be very great.
Yeah,
if you
and
do
that stuff isn't funny. I think people think it's a joke. I think people saying, "Oh, girl, look at your hair." People think it's funny, and it's not. Words hurt. Like words hurt. So I think it's important for everyone to just be careful with what you say. Like, be careful with what you put out. Be careful with what you post, what you comment, what you share, because that can really affect someone.
I agree completely. Let's move on to our next video.
I don't think I need to say much about why bullying is bad because we all know it is, but some people still wrongfully choose to do it. Galena Park High School should be a no place for hate for numerous reasons, but one of them being that students come to school to learn, and we also need to understand that for some, school is a getaway from home. Now everyone has a right to their education and to learn, and they should be rightfully able to do so without the fear of being judged or bullied in their own learning environments.
I feel like she made a lot of great points in that video, and it essentially gets to the core of why, at least in the school place, a lot of this is wrong because we're just coming here to learn. people should be able to learn. Why are you trying to make a place where it's harder to do that? Especially since for so many people, like she said, school is a place of safety. School is a place to help them get a step up from wherever their background is that might be putting them in a place of disenfranchisement.
Yes. And it's just crazy because you can be at home going through stuff. You can go to school and go through stuff. So that's 5 days out of your week, 7 days out of your week that you can't get a break because somebody is always on you. Somebody is always messing with you and picking at you, and it can lead to suicide and just different things that it's like, I can't do this anymore. And I feel like school should always be a place where you can see your friends and your teachers, people who are there to love you and be there for you. And I just feel like that's exactly what she said.
She basically laid it out for us
and did. So now we are done with all of our videos. Those videos were amazing. And now we are gonna have an interview with Miss Vanessa Squirrel.
Okay, hi, Vanessa Squirrel. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you're working towards, things like that?
Okay, sure. Well, my name is, as you said, Vanessa Squirrel, and I am the Director of School Culture here in Galena Park. And I work with a lot of climate and culture groups. What that means is I work with a lot of groups that help with like social skills and help people to be kind to each other and help people to interact in a positive way with each other. So pretty much it's all about positivity.
And so far, how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing this about 14 years.
14 years.
Okay.
What are some differences you've noticed in those 14 years, like as the program's progressed?
Well, I've noticed that as we pay attention to our climate, and we do the surveys and things like that, and we let the data drive us in the direction that we need to go, because those surveys give everybody a voice. They're for students. Remember those student surveys? Well, that came from me. Those, and then those the parent surveys and the staff surveys. That's what we do. We make sure we use that data just so we can measure, and by paying attention to it, it's good.
Okay. What are some examples you can give us of things that you've implemented at the different levels of our district?
Oh wow! I should have brought a little list. But I tell you. Well, we've strengthened our Character Ed program. The No Place for Hate program. We started it district wide in August. SEL, Social Emotional Learning. We're doing that. The girls' clubs, we're trying to make them in every campus. The boys' clubs, we've strengthened those. The foundations, just a bunch of different positive climate groups.
Now, as a former president of No Place for Hate, I remember us doing, or trying to, because we just, we had COVID last year, we did like several activities to get the community together. We did a runway, a fashion show. We did a talent show and several things like that. Are there some programs this year that you're planning on doing despite the fact that we have COVID?
Well, I allow each campus to do their own programs, but every campus is supposed to do an event once a semester. So like at your campus, for example, they've already done a couple, so they're above the game, or beyond the game. But we try to give people their flexibility so they can do what they want. But there has to be something that includes the community and the kids and the staff. So we just monitor, we just support that. So whatever they need, if they need resources to make that happen, that's what we do.
Okay, and I have a question for you. So how does the district deal with cyberbullying? What have you implemented as far as cyberbullying? Because I know that that's really something serious, especially with people our age. So how have y'all helped with cyberbullying?
Well, there's a lot of different levels that we do on this campus to address those things. For example, with me, I'm with the elementary campuses. We have our character education program where we talk about how we treat each other. We talk about how to get help. We talk about, not only how I need to feel, but how others need to feel. And that's the SEL part of it, those SEL objectives that we have. So we pretty much try to do it in a positive way. Also, too, on the middle school campuses, we have advisory classes. They're 25 minutes every single day. And so that's where we have a chance to have conversations about how we feel, how do others feel, how do we get along with others. and then we have that open space so that way they can talk about anything that's come up. But now also there's a whole nother department too that helps me, and I work very closely with them. We have caseworkers, we have student support services. Now they specifically do a lot as far as with the bullying, because they actually go in and they sometimes counsel and sometimes help, things like that. So we have a lot of different arms that are moving in terms of cyberbullying. But also too, there's one more thing that we use. There's a program that the chief of police uses, and all of the schools have access to it. Forgot the name of it, but in that program we can get reports every night. Like if somebody says, you know, it picks up on keywords like gun or fight and so we get all of these reports back, and it's a free program that we've been using since September. And so we'll share it with each other. But there's another part too. I'm also over threat assessment. So that means that whenever something happens, so I get the data, I get the information from the campuses, and I help to decide how we're going to handle this particular situation.
Okay.
So it's a lot of stuff.
It is a lot of stuff.
I guess my next question would be, what can high school students really do to report bullying on campus?
Well, if you go to our district website, they have a spot on there and it shows the process and the procedure. On the main page of the district website, if you go there, there's a section that will have bullying. And so it tells them exactly what the process is in the district and how to take care of it. But I can tell you now, the first thing you need to do is, once you've identified that it's pervasive and it happens all the time, then you go and you take it to your teacher or your AP. And by law, they have to take it seriously, write a report, and then they have to deal with, like, let's say it's you being bullied. They have to help you get help, and then they gotta help the person who's doing it to get help.
My other question, I guess, would be, when it comes to bullying, a lot of the times that we don't really see them being reported is because for some kids, there's not much, there's more at risk than for reporting, like risk of being bullied. So how do y'all combat that?
So you're saying that there's retaliation?
Yes, essentially.
That's the word that you were.
Yes,
okay, I'm sorry. No, that's okay. I was following you on that. Well, here's the thing. Once you make the report to a GPISD staff member, a teacher, AP, like I said, by law, they have to follow up on that. And there's got to be some kind of a contract with you, your parents, and maybe even somebody else outside of that. Like I said, go back and look at our processes, the forms that we use. Everything is online. We're very, very transparent. But we do take it very, very seriously. So to the fact that you shouldn't have to feel you're going to be retaliated against, because that person will get an even greater punishment or consequence. I don't like that word, punishment. They will get a greater consequence if they retaliate against you in a situation like that.
Okay, so let's say if someone is being bullied, how can they mentally cope with it? Because I know that bullying, that can be stressful. That can really affect you mentally, physically, and emotionally.
Oh yeah,
so
of course.
How can they cope with that?
How can they cope with it? Well, here's the thing. With a situation like bullying, it needs to be handled from us. We have to stop it. You know, if we want change, we have to be the change that we want. And so what you have to do is, let's say you're not being bullied, but you know that new student over there in the cafeteria or sitting by himself is being bullied. So we have to figure out ways to bring them into the fold, because one thing I know about bullies is they don't pick on anybody who has friends. So if you see somebody that's isolated, that seems like they're a loner, and you see that people are picking on them, all you have to do is step up your game and say, stop it, that's my friend, leave him alone. And usually, 9 times out of 10, it'll stop. But it's when we leave people in isolation and we leave them alone to their own devices, and then that allows folks that want to pick on the weaker. And that's what bullying is about. It's always about it's a power struggle. It's about somebody who thinks I'm bigger, stronger than that person. So that way I can do that to him. So if you guys could do that, that would be awesome.
I think I've always tried to be the bigger person. You know, anytime I saw anybody being bullied or somebody, you know, being picked on, I always tried to say, hey, you know, like, that's not right. Even through social media, you know, Instagram, Snapchat, you know, somebody, if they posted about someone else, or they say, oh, look at her hair or her makeup, it's kind of like, hey, like, don't do that. And then it'll kind of make somebody feel bad. Like,
that's right. That's right. If you stand up for somebody that doesn't have anybody to stand up for them, that will stop it, because bullies do not like to mess with anybody who has somebody, who has support. Okay?
Since the district has implemented No Place for Hate and other initiatives, has the district personnel seen a decrease in bullying?
I want to say because we're in COVID right now, this is a different type of because I don't want to say it's because of No Place for Hate or Character Ed or SEL. I want to say the numbers are gone down probably because of the pandemic, and only 40% of the students are on campus right now. So I can't really use any data, hard data, to say that it's making a difference or not. But I think by everybody buying into it and agreeing and doing the pledge on every single campus, saying that we are No Place for Hate campus, we are a tolerant, inclusive place, and by people owning that, I think it's going to make a difference. But I'll have to wait till we go back to some form of normal, so I'll have real data to, to judge it on.
Yeah, but seeing the No Place for Hate everywhere, like just looking at it in the hallways or just hearing, like, I have a shirt that's like for the No Place for Hate, and it just makes me realize, like, Galena Park is trying to make us better. They're trying to unify us, and that's, that's important to me. So I'm glad that No Place for Hate is really a part of Galena Park.
Okay, so I have two last things to talk about, or ask you, should I say. We've touched on in-person bullies, but what do we really do about cyberbullying? How can we support our peers when they're being bullied online?
Yes, because you did say that, in person you can always, go to that person and say, hey, stop. But virtually, how do you go to someone and say, hey, stop?
Well, you actually, online, you once you start saying, hey, stop, and then, with 5 or 6 more people say, to call that person out, and then you stop following that person, and you stop hitting like for that person, and then every time they say something that's offline or crosses the line, that you call it out and say, hey, that's not right, stop it. This is not funny. And so then once you do it, and then you got all the likes, and then guess what, that person kind of shrinks a little bit. You know what I mean? They shrink.
So it's about the commentation, the likes, okay.
Exactly, it works really well. But also too, I'm back to the Chromebooks. On the Chromebooks, everybody has that program where we can see that, and so we usually try to address it.
Okay. And then my last question would be, how do students and parents differentiate between just teasing to bullying to harassment? Like, where do we need intervention?
I think at the beginning of the awareness part of it, at the beginning of the initial negative interactions, you need to let somebody know so they can be aware of it, so they can keep their eyes out for it. And so if it digresses to a lower level, then you already have somebody that knows the whole story for you. You don't be quiet. And that's the thing, and that's how abuse always occurs, is when people be quiet. When somebody says to you, don't say anything, don't tell anybody. Well, that's by you following those instructions, that's what perpetuates negative behaviors. Tell someone.
Wow. That is really amazing. Oh my goodness, I learned so much from having you here. This was so amazing. Thank you for joining us today, Miss World. This was amazing. It was so nice meeting you, and I hope you have an amazing day.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Everyone.
Hopefully we will see you on episode 4 of A View from the Inside with Galena Park ISD's Student Advisory Board.